I've been plagued with an affliction from an early age. That affliction's name is World of Warcraft. When I was 9 years old, I started playing World of Warcraft. I stupidly surrounded myself with addicts and I was sucked into the large open world. The mass amounts of people I would stumble across and the character I enveloped so much time and emotion into. I recently dropped WoW, hoping that I would be free again, that I would be able to play other titles. In the midst of playing other genres though, I felt a void inside me. Another huge urge to run around with people in an open, vast world and dedicate myself to a character. This time, that urge didn't scream WoW though. It shouted, well, that isn't entirely true either. What I really wanted was another MMO to sink a bunch of time into. An MMO that I could form amazing memories from in a beautiful, lore-enriched world. I loved all of the raiding and dungeons in WoW, so Final Fantasy XIV seemed like the obvious game to play, especially with all of the people moving towards it. But I wanted to play something a little bit different from the traditional World of Warcraft. This isn't my first time playing ESO, but I have the memory of a boomer. Towards lots of things actually. And all I really remember was making a Khajiit Nightblade and running through a giant forest. I also really like the Elder Scrolls lore, or at least the bit of it I know. That isn't much. But, you know, I played Oblivion and Skyrim and I had a bunch of fun in them, and I picked up the little bit of lore from those games. Another thing I actually remember from ESO was getting excited about it with all of my normie friends and then finding out they all abandoned hope because it wasn't Skyrim 2. Such an ignorant statement now that I look back at it, and how stupid I was to have listened to them. Yeah. The past 2 times I played this game, I picked Aldmeri Dominion. And I'm stubborn and have a hard time learning, so of course I did it again. I decided to go with the Wood Elf because my favorite Elder Scrolls character of all time, the Dorian fan, is a Bosmer. But I like the way the elves look, and I think this lore video I watched of the Bosmer was incredibly interesting. I also happened to pick a Nightblade because I use dex builds, fuck strength players. Before mentioning anything else, I think it's important to point out the elephant in the room. The crown shop is fucking terrible. Like, absolutely fucking horrible. It's so bothersome that Bethesda is willing to make the game pay to win. The fact that I can go into the in-game shop and purchase almost every single fucking cool mount in the game, pardon the few, but the coolest houses in the game also, and get some of the coolest looking outfits and costumes in the game, and get as much money as I want is fucking ridiculous. I really don't like how it seems like almost every single MMO recently has fallen to these depths. And I can go on and on about the issues of the crown shop, but at this point, I think most people are aware of the monetization in most MMOs right now. I also think it's important to mention how Bethesda monetizes its gameplay content. I went into this game assuming that I could spend however much money on the game and the expansion and not have to open up my wallet until future DLC. I was very, very wrong. The Steam store didn't indicate to me the amount of purchasable content DLCs, and it was, I would say it's misleading. I eventually found out by opening up my map and looking at a bunch of locked zones that I need to spend a ridiculous amount of money to purchase all of the content released in this game, or I could invest into ESO Plus. I was fine with investing into ESO Plus, but I wish that they were more transparent about it. I guess it's a great deal considering that a huge amount of content is locked behind $15 a month instead of spending my entire bank account. It's like if WoW decided to allow you to play all of the vanilla content for $20 and then lock all of the large content patches behind paywalls until you succumb to the subscription. Moving along to more positive topics, I don't know if it's because I was influenced by WoW to believe that all quests are mind-numbing, but the quests in ESO are incredibly interesting compared to other MMOs I've delved into. The main quest wasn't anything to write home about, but I was invested into it far more than killing Princess in Elwyn Forest. Although I have so many great memories doing that, which is really the only real reason I remember so many of the quests from WoW because of how often I did them. Unlike WoW, ESO's quests reeled me in by giving me characters to latch onto. Even though a bunch of the content is locked behind paywalls, ESO Plus allows me to expand on my previous knowledge of the Elder Scrolls series. The quest not only involved characters I knew from the past, but I remember specifically doing Orsinium and stepping back to think, I can't believe an MMO is investing me so much into these characters that I really had no idea about. I will admit there is one character that has been bothering me throughout the game, but most of the characters add something to the world. It makes the world feel alive on top of the players running around it. It also makes this game feel like an MMORPG, respectfully. Something I believe has become detached from MMORPGs besides the social aspect has been the RPG portion. When I would log on to WoW, it felt like a job that I didn't want to be at. But I need to show up because I didn't want to let go of my friends or the job. ESO feels a lot like an RPG title. There are lots of dialogue sequences that allow you to give your own input. There are stealth systems in play and the criminal system very much like previous Elder Scrolls games. There's the ability to steal loot from NPCs and assassinate people like in Assassin's Creed. This game feels so much like an RPG sometimes that I forget other players aren't NPCs running in front of me. The quest really did a great job in developing me into the story, and I could definitely understand if somebody just played ESO for the questing. I didn't even feel like rushing through them to get to the max level, as I wanted to experience the questlines as they were. I think the thing I had the most trouble with in this title was fighting the urge to go back and play Oblivion or Skyrim, and to go through these stories with a new perspective on the Elder Scrolls universe. I love all of the RPG elements, but it definitely takes something away from ESO. Like I said earlier, it seems more recently MMORPGs have felt detached from the social aspect. I believe this game has chosen a far more radical RPG approach at the cost of social fluidity. Playing through the quest feels like an RPG title. It's fun, it's interesting, but when you add friends or other players to the equation, it's a little bit different. This game feels very much like the solo player's MMO. I was having more fun delving into quests when I didn't have to wait for my friend to catch up, or when my friend didn't have to wait for me to catch up. It eventually ended up feeling like an isolated experience. Me and my friend were on the same quest line, but in different sections. Even though I was just saying how boring the questing is in WoW, WoW quests get better with more people. If there's more people, it means 10 boars die faster. It feels enhanced and feels meant to be played with a bunch of different players. There are dungeons in ESO that felt pretty cool, I guess. It felt very much like running a dungeon in WoW with a new combat system and different art to look at. I can't speak much about the trials and how they relate to raiding because I haven't been a part of one yet. But a lot of the PvP instance content seems to be constantly improving and done pretty well. I also think PvP is a rather large part of this game. PvP was the main focus of Endgame when this game first launched, and I know when I went to give ESO a chance, the first thing I thought of was the PvP. Cyrodiil gives an interesting approach to world PvP. It's kind of like instance PvP, but feels like world PvP encounters for people who are into that. Smacking enemies in the game with gear has always felt more interesting to me compared to other genres and how their PvP system works. However, it does seem pretty weird that besides Cyrodiil, there is no world PvP. I don't exactly know how to feel about it, I guess. I guess it's kinda cool that anybody could play with each other no matter what faction they are, but at the same time, I think it would be far much cooler to run into somebody of a different faction and fight them. I know it would also add more to that RPG solo player aspect thing I was mentioning earlier. To be able to fight an enemy of your faction if they were invading your lands feels like an RPG. It feels great and it feels immersive. I do think what makes the PvE and PvP stand out for me though is the combat. The combat in ESO is very interesting. It has a soft lock-on system instead of tap targeting, alongside some abilities. The ability to dodge out of the way, block, heavy attack, and light attack feels great. It makes the combat feel smooth from the very get-go, and adds systems that don't bog down the game and instead enlighten the experience and make it feel familiar. The abilities feel very much like other MMOs, but there is another system that makes the abilities feel very different in a completely different regard. The weapon swap system is pretty cool. It allows you to cycle between weapons and gives you the option to use abilities you're not accustomed to on the fly. It also showcases the massive amount of opportunities for builds you have per class. I really do like the class systems and how it gives an identity to your gameplay, and I also really like the liberal freedom that each class has. I love how I could play a mage type character with heavy armor and a two-handed sword because I fucking want to. It also helps that this game seems to be balanced a lot better than WoW particularly. I'm sure it helps that there are fewer classes for them to balance and master, and I prefer this method a little bit actually. It's different than what I'm used to, but I like how you can do what you want in a larger set of rules, rather than being locked into a specific specialization that your class can do without many varieties of builds. Which leads perfectly into the skill system. WoW really doesn't give you much variance for how you would like to play your Frost Mage. ESO gives you so many options on how to play your class, it's pretty commendable. The amount of skill trees that are in the game is fucking crazy. There's so many skill trees with different abilities and passives that expand on your gameplay opportunities, evolves the combat, and so many more aspects of this game. It can change the way you interact with dialogue through involving yourself into different guilds. This part again adds to the RPG aspect that I like, the whole guild system in the game. It can make getting away with crimes much easier if you want to partake in the stealth gameplay. It can also enhance RPG elements by allowing you to become a werewolf or vampire. I really do love the skills in this game, and it's a breath of fresh air from the shackled down WoW talent tree. It gives to the idea of choice and allows me to feel as if I'm not part of the retail scene of Azeroth. I'm only broadly talking about the mini systems that I think are important to mention in this game. I also think I should mention how overwhelming this game was at the start, as like every single MMO is, and how the community really made this illusion go away. Something that I recommend a lot more people do in MMOs is ask for help if you don't understand something. Something I love about MMOs is that social aspect, the massively multiplayer online aspect, obviously. And even though this feels like the solo player's MMO, the community wasn't shy of answering my questions. I really do love the social aspect of this genre, and the amount of people that were willing to help on Reddit and in the game felt human. It felt really great. I miss the days of people giving each other advice and treating each other as people in World of Warcraft. For a couple of years, the humanity has been ripped away, and everybody, including myself, seems to keep to themselves as we do our dailies and mindlessly do quests at the hope for a brighter future. ESO has given me another taste of humanity, and it has given me hope for another bright light. I still have much more to do in ESO for the future, and I can envision myself enjoying my time. I would also love to try other MMOs, and I of course still love playing other genres, but ESO really did grip me back into reality. I don't think this game is amazing by any means necessary, and if the crown shop didn't discourage my progression and if there were more opportunities for large group questing, I would probably invite many more people to play this game. Instead of giving a blatant statement on if ESO is a great MMO, I think it's much more important to dial on what this game does amazing. This game really does feel like a solo player's MMO. It feels much more like an RPG title than other MMOs I've played. And anybody who is into that way of playing should definitely try this game out. It also has instance content for people who love that. I'm sure the trials are at least interesting enough to have people try it, and Cyrodiil is pretty fucking great. The major lack of in this game is the lack of open world interactions. I do miss this a little bit while running around Tamriel, but I do think the RPG and instance content I have done is incredibly interesting if nothing else. I do also think I'll have a lot more to say about the game in the future when I've done more of the in-game content. These are just my impressions and what I would say about the game after spending how much time I've spent into it. Thanks everybody for watching, I appreciate it, and I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Later.